Hey, you. Thinking about heading out to Joshua Tree? Maybe you're a regular, or perhaps that iconic landscape is finally on your travel radar.
hmm
Well, you might have heard something about construction happening at the west entrance. That's exactly what we're diving into today.
That's right. Whether you're, intimately familiar with those desert vistas or just curious about what's going on in such a popular national park, we've gathered info from the National Park Service, SF Gate, the Victorville Daily Press, and even Supervisor Don Rowe's office to give you a pretty comprehensive look.
Yeah, our goal in this deep dive is basically to understand why there's all this activity at such a well-used entrance, what this new construction actually entails, and maybe most importantly for anyone planning a visit, how it's going to affect you, especially with a temporary closure coming up.
Right. That closure is key.
Okay, so let's get right to it. Why the need for all this change at the west entrance?
It really boils down to just sheer overwhelming popularity. It's kind of wild, actually.
Popular.
Yeah. What's truly remarkable is the exponential increase in the number of people visiting. Over the past 10 years, we've seen a staggering 194% jump in vehicle traffic just at that west entrance.
Whoa, 194%.
Incredible.
It's incredible in just 10 years.
Yeah, it's more than double the traffic they were seeing just a decade ago. It's a huge surge.
You just don't see growth like that in many places. What does that look like in actual, car numbers?
Well, in 2023 alone, over 500,000 vehicles, 515,603 to be precise, passed through that single west entrance.
500,000 cars.
Wow. Yeah, and when you think about the average number of people per car, that translates to roughly 1.2 million visitors using just that one gateway into the park.
Wow, 1.2 million people through one entrance. You can just imagine the strain that puts on, well, everything, the infrastructure, the staff, even the land itself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's not just that it's busy overall. The west entrance is by far the most heavily used. It handles more than double the volume of the next busiest entrance, which is the one over in Twentynine Palms. Yeah. For instance, if we look at April of 2024, just last year, the west entrance saw almost 50,000 cars, 49,858. Compare that to just over 21,472 pair at 29 Palms. The difference is really significant.
So, okay, what are the real-world consequences of that kind of traffic bottleneck? It can't just be a minor annoyance.
Oh, definitely not. It
Right.
creates pretty substantial issues. We're talking about really long wait times, like hours sometimes, just to get into the park.
Hours just sitting in line.
Yep. And the traffic often backs up far beyond the entrance itself, spilling right into the town of Joshua Tree.
Oh, man.
This causes, significant disruption for the local community. It blocks driveways, impedes their daily routines.
Yeah.
It's a real headache for residents.
Yeah, I can picture the frustration, just trying to go about your day with a line of park visitors clogging up your streets. That's got to be tough.
Exactly. And what's also kind of interesting, or maybe problematic, is that on particularly crowded days, the park has even had to resort to what they call flushing the lines.
Flushing, what does that mean?
It means they temporarily just wave vehicles through, let them enter for free, simply to alleviate the massive congestion that's built up.
Huh. Free entry.
Yeah. Which, might seem like a bonus for those specific visitors who get lucky, but it also means the park is losing out on crucial revenue. It's money that could be used for maintenance, visitor services, conservation, all sorts of important stuff.
Right. So it sounds like this overwhelming popularity is creating this, cascade of problems for visitors waiting hours, for locals dealing with blocked streets, and even for the park's budget.
Precisely. It's a multifaceted issue.
Okay, so that leads us perfectly to what's the solution they've come up with to tackle all this?
The answer is a completely new entrance station, a big one. We're talking about a $5 million project.
$5 million. Okay, that's a serious investment.
It really is. And if you connect this to the bigger picture, increasing visitation across many national parks, this kind of investment in infrastructure is becoming more and more necessary.
Yeah.
It's about managing the crowds and trying to preserve the visitor experience, really.
That makes sense. So where exactly will this new station be located?
It's being built less than half a mile south of the current entrance, and importantly, it will be situated further inside the park boundaries,
Further in, how much further?
approximately 2,300 feet from the existing location.
Ah, okay. So that extra distance, that buffer inside the park, should definitely help keep the traffic from spilling out onto Park Boulevard in town, right?
That's the primary goal, exactly. And the design of the new station itself is just much more efficient for handling traffic flow. It's going to feature 2 inbound lanes.
2 lanes in. Nice.
Yeah, 1 outbound lane, and crucially, a bypass lane in each direction.
Oh, a bypass lane. That sounds like a huge improvement, especially for folks who already have their passes or annual passes or are just exiting.
Absolutely. That's a game changer. It's designed to streamline the entire entry and exit process, significantly reduce those long wait times, and just cut down on the overall congestion.
And what happens to the old entrance station then?
Once the new station is fully operational, the plan is to demolish the old one and then rehabilitate that whole area, and restore it a bit, which will also be, a visual improvement as you enter the park.
Okay, makes sense. So when can people actually expect to be driving through this new and improved entrance? What's the timeline?
The current estimated completion time frame is early 2026.
Early 2026. Okay, so still a ways off.
Yeah, there will be some temporary disruptions in the meantime, like the closure we need to talk about. But the long-term expectation is for a much, much smoother and more enjoyable entry into the park.
And the funding you mentioned, $5 million, where's that coming from? Are park fees going up to pay for this?
That's always a valid concern, right? But no, the project is being funded through the fee dollars that are already collected at the park's entrance stations. So according to the National Park Service, this construction won't result in an increase in the cost of entering Joshua Tree. It's essentially a reinvestment of the fees that visitors like us are already paying.
That's good to hear. It makes sense that those fees are being used to directly enhance the visitor experience, fix these kinds of problems.
Exactly.
Was there any opportunity for the public to, weigh in on this project, given its scale and location?
Yes, absolutely. There was a formal process for public input. The Park Service held what's called a public scoping period back in 2021. That's an early stage where they gather initial feedback, ideas, concerns.
Okay.
And following that, there was a public comment period on the draft environmental assessment in early 2022.
An environmental assessment, so they studied the impacts.
Right, a study to understand the potential environmental impacts of the project. The public could review that assessment and voice their opinions and concerns during that comment period.
What was the outcome?
Ultimately, the regional director signed what's called a Finding of No Significant Impact, or FONSI, in March of 2022, and that decision essentially allowed the project to move forward.
Gotcha. So the project has been planned, reviewed, approved, funded by existing fees, and now construction is underway. But there's this temporary closure that we mentioned right at the start. Let's dive into the how of that. How is this construction going to impact visits in the short term, specifically with this shutdown?
Okay, yeah, this is really crucial info for anyone planning a trip to Joshua Tree in early April of next year, 2025.
2025. Got it.
The west entrance of the park will be completely closed to all traffic, both inbound and outbound.
Completely closed. Wow. When exactly?
It starts at 6 a.m. on Monday, April 7th, and lasts until 6 p.m. on Thursday, April 10th, 2025.
Okay, Monday morning to Thursday evening. So that's a full 4 days of no access through the west entrance at all.
Exactly. No quick morning hikes starting there, no driving out that way, nothing. If the west entrance is your usual way into or out of the park, you absolutely need to adjust your plans during those specific 4 days.
Right. So what are the alternative options for getting into Joshua Tree during this temporary closure? Where do people go instead?
Visitors will need to use one of the other 2 main entrances. The first is the north entrance station, which is located in the town of Twentynine Palms.
Okay, 29 Palms. How far is that from the west entrance?
It's about 25 miles to the east along Highway 62. The park estimates that using this entrance will add roughly 17 minutes or so to your travel time, assuming you're coming from the west along Highway 62.
Okay, 17 minutes extra drive time. What's the other option?
The second option is the Cottonwood entrance. This one is situated way down at the park's southern boundary off Interstate 10. It's also about 25 miles east, but this time east of India.
Got it. So 29 Palms from the North Highway 62 side, or Cottonwood from the South I-10 side.
Correct. Depending on your starting point and where in the park you're headed, you'll need to factor in that additional driving time to reach one of those open entrances.
What about trying to sort of sneak around? Can people bypass the closure by driving through the town of Joshua Tree and just continuing up Park Boulevard towards the usual entrance point?
No. And this is really crucial to understand. The park has explicitly stated that entry via Park Boulevard through the town of Joshua Tree will not be allowed during this temporary west entrance closure.
Okay, so don't even try it.
Right. Attempting to get in that way simply won't be an option. They'll likely have barriers or personnel there to prevent it. It's a firm closure.
Okay, good to know. So it's a hard closure of the west entrance. And visitors absolutely need to use the designated north or south alternatives. What's the specific reason for needing this 4-day complete shutdown? What work are they doing?
This particular closure window is necessary to allow the construction crews to perform some really essential infrastructure work right at that junction.
Like what?
They need an uninterrupted period to prepare the ground for paving the new entrance road. They need to install all the utility lines, power, communications, etc., that will service the new station. And they also need to make adjustments to the road grade, the slope in that area.
Ah, okay. Stuff you just can't do safely with cars driving by.
Exactly. These are tasks that simply cannot be carried out safely or efficiently with traffic, even limited traffic, flowing through that specific construction zone.
That makes sense. Major road work like that often requires a full closure for a bit. What about the rest of the park? If you manage to get in through the north or south, will the roads and trails inside the park remain open during this west entrance closure?
Yes, that's the good news. Based on the information we have from the Park Service, all other roads within Joshua Tree National Park are expected to remain open during this temporary closure of just the west entrance.
Okay, that's a relief.
So once you enter through either the north or south entrance, you should still have access to, Hid Valley, Keys View, Skull Rock, all the various points of interest within the park. The closure is really focused just on that west gate access point.
That's helpful. Now, people might be creatures of habit. They might just drive up to the west entrance without realizing or remembering it's closed. Can they just turn around right there if they see the closure? Is that something the park is anticipating or advising against?
Well, the park does mention a couple of potential turnaround points. For instance, the Quail Springs picnic area, for those maybe already inside the park wanting to exit west, and the area near the current west entrance location for those arriving from the west on Park Boulevard.
Okay.
However, they strongly advise against using these areas for turnarounds
Why is that?
because they anticipate a high likelihood of significant congestion. Think about it. If everyone who normally uses the west entrance suddenly has to turn around in those limited spots, those areas are expected to become very crowded very quickly. Could cause even more backups.
Ah, right. Creates a whole new bottleneck. So the best advice is definitely be aware of the closure dates, April 7th to 10th, 2025, and actively plan your route to avoid the west entrance area altogether during those 4 days. Go straight to the north or Cottonwood entrance.
Exactly. Plan ahead. Will there be signs posted to warn people as they get closer? Yes, definitely. The park has indicated that they will be placing prominent signage along Highway 62, along Park Boulevard leading up to the entrance, and also at key points within the park itself. These signs will clearly alert visitors to the upcoming closure and direct them towards the open north and south entrances.
Okay, so keep an eye out for those signs, but don't rely solely on them. Know before you go.
Precisely. Awareness is key.
All right, so we've covered the why, the massive popularity, the what the new $5 million entrance station, and the how, the temporary 4-day closure in early April 2025, and the alternative routes. What are some final tips, takeaways we can offer our listeners who might have a trip to Joshua Tree planned, maybe even around that time frame next year?
Yeah, the park rangers themselves offer a few key pieces of advice. First and foremost, and this applies anytime really, but especially with construction and ultra traffic, they urge everyone to recreate responsibly while in the park.
Recreate responsibly, like what specifically?
Well, adhering to posted speed limits, which might be lowered in some areas, and definitely staying on designated roads. No off-roading, especially near construction zones or potentially congested areas around the other entrances.
Definitely good reminders. Patience will probably be important too, right? Given the potential for increased traffic and maybe longer lines at the north and south entrances during that closure week.
Absolutely. Pack your patience. Secondly, they strongly recommend purchasing your entrance pass online in advance through recreation.gov.
Ah, good tip.
Yeah, this can save you valuable time sitting in line at the entrance stations you do use, whether it's the north or south during the closure, or even the west entrance other times. It just makes the whole entry process smoother.
That's always a smart strategy, really. No matter which national park you're visiting these days, saves time, less hassle.
For sure. And finally, they advise downloading the official NPS app, specifically the one for Joshua Tree.
The NPS app. Is it helpful?
Oh yeah, it's an incredibly useful tool. You can use it for trip planning. Before you even leave home, you can download offline maps, which is crucial because cell service is spotty in the park.
Oh yeah, very spotty.
Right. And importantly, you can get real-time alerts about Park conditions, road closures, construction updates, things like that. It's the best way to get the most up-to-date information right from the source.
Okay, good advice. Recreate responsibly, buy passes ahead, and download the app. Got it.
Hmm.
So just to kind of wrap this up for you, the west entrance of Joshua Tree, the most popular way into the park by far, is getting a much-needed major upgrade. This is happening because visitor numbers have just exploded. The goal is a better experience, less congestion, thanks to a brand new, bigger entrance station further inside the park. But to make that happen, there will be a temporary but complete closure of that west entrance for 4 days in early April of 2025, Monday the 7th to Thursday the 10th.
Key dates to remember.
Definitely.
Mhm.
So if you have plans to visit during that specific time, make sure you plan to use the north entrance in 29 Palms or the south Cottonwood entrance off I-10, and maybe factor in some extra travel time.
Exactly. Whether you're a longtime admirer of Joshua Tree or planning your very first visit, these are really essential details to be aware of right now. This infrastructure improvement, while causing some short-term inconvenience, is ultimately aimed at ensuring the park remains accessible and enjoyable for everyone, despite its immense popularity.
Yeah, absolutely. And it really does prompt you to think, doesn't it? We see this pattern across so many national parks, booming visitation. How will these treasured spaces continue to balance providing access for potentially ever-growing crowds with the critical need for preservation in the years ahead? It's a really complex challenge, kind of the central tension for the Park Service, I think. And there are definitely no easy answers, something to mull over.